Hello my friends, Jacob is here once again. Thank you for pressing play. You spend some really quality time with me today. It's going to be a beneficial show for you. It's going to be an eye-opening show for you. You see, because for many years, religion has gotten people to believe the wrong thing. And it's been happening for far too long, and people, they put their faith in these, these superpowers and these miraculous feats, which I'm not saying is beyond the realm of possibility. With faith, all things are possible. But people are missing the point. They're missing the truth. And that's why the world needed to be shaken up. Got to get everybody to wake up, to look at their lives again, and to say, hey, you know what? Maybe there's more. Now, a lot of people try to get people to turn to them. They go like this. They put the thumbs, me, me, me. I'm the anointed of God. People do this a lot, right? Look at me. They'll do all sorts of things to get people's attention. And in a roundabout way, what they end up doing is they end up worshiping the person giving the message as opposed to worshiping the one who the message was supposed to be for. This is something that just happened recently at an event at Kanye West's service. Yes, my friend Lucinda, who sends me so much great information, she sent me this little thing, and as I go through the list of all the things to choose from, right, what do I want to read, right? Because many times I find it myself, but I love when people share things with me. I saw Kanye West walks on water, and I thought to myself, well, I got to read that, right? I have to acquaint myself with what's going on with Kanye. So lo and behold, I find that his wife, Kim Kardashian, shared on Instagram this video. He did his little service, in Atlanta. And with his service, what he did was he walked on water. Him and his little kitties. It was cute. They walked on water. It was like a stunt. It was a miracle, so they say. Story in the Bible back in Yahshua's day, Jesus' day, where he did this very same thing. But you got to remember something. If you've been on the channel for long enough, you know that I like to take the literal and I like to expose the spiritual meaning, right? Because ultimately the flesh that we're in, this literal world, this temporal world that we're in, it's all going to go bye-bye. Everything that you see around me is going to fade away, but the spirit, the life that is within me, that has become me in this world, that goes on. So Jesus was very well acquainted with parable, and he taught a parable is something where you tell a story, very much like the boy who cried wolf. And see, the problem is religion will take that story that's meant to be taken spiritually. Right? You shouldn't cry wolf, you shouldn't exaggerate, you shouldn't lie, because there are consequences. And religion turned it into, there's a literal boy, there's a literal wolf, and this literally happened. And we need to worship the literal boy and the literal wolf story and totally disregard the spirit of it. In the scriptures, it teaches us that the letter, the literal, can kill, but the spirit is what gives us life. So Kanye, as a stunt, and I'm using this story as a, kind of like a springboard into something that I think is very important. I'm going to reveal, if you will, the real meaning, I shouldn't say the real meaning, I should say the deeper spiritual meaning of when Jesus walked on water. It's a story that we find in the Gospels, every Gospel but John. And in the story, I'm going to be reading and teaching out of the Gospel of Mark. I just like Mark. I like them all. But in the story, what happens is we just had the big miracle of the loaves where he broke the bread and the fish and he fed all these people. And then what he did was he sent his disciples. He said, I want you to go to the other side. I want you to get in the ship. And I want you to go to the other side. You ate till your heart's content. Now I want you to go this way. And while you're going to do that, I'm going to get rid of the people. I'm going to go up and I'm going to pray. Jesus does this, right? So disciples, they're sent into the ships and they get into the sea. And as they're trying to get over to a place called Bethsaida, which means the house of fish, right? Because once you start to come to the knowledge of truth, Jesus says, I'll make you fishers of men. So they've eaten this bread, they've eaten the fish, and they're going. He says, go to the other side. I'm going to explain what all that means in a moment. Jesus goes up to pray, a storm comes. And we know the story, right? So as they're fighting hard against the wind, and they can't seem to make it, they're stressing out. All of a sudden, right, they say Yahshua, they say Jesus walking over the sea, walking upon the sea. And you get this picture of like this event that we've seen again and again and again in the movies. Into the ship, and at that point in time, there's another telling of the tale where Peter comes out, but that's another story. He calms the storms. Now, Kanye took this literally, which is okay, because I'm not saying that didn't literally happen. It could have happened. But he didn't literally do it. He pulled a stunt like Simon the magician. This guy was, he did all these great feats, but it wasn't until he heard the truth of God that Simon turned around. You can do all these little gimmicks and all these little things and all these shows, and you can have your big events, right? I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of it's been taken away from people. Can't have your big events anymore. A lot of people can't even go to their big denominational huge mega church anymore because it's been shut down. Some people say that's a bad thing. I say that everything happens because God is trying to reveal the truth to everybody so that people can be set free. But they make it all about these events. They make it all about these big shows. It's all about the miracle. It's all about the letter. And that's why Kanye walking across the water with his, it's a little bit much, don't you think? Here's this guy. Already I'll say, all right, I have a couple of videos on Kanye, you should watch them, but I'll say that the man is artistically, I think he's a genius. I really do. I think he's done more artistically speaking in my lifetime than I've seen anybody do. And I'm not saying I'm a fan, right? But I do once again feel a connection to his story because he is so influential in the world today. And the fact that he's picturing himself walking across the water, it's a very obvious thing. He's the Messiah. I'm not saying that he's pretending himself to be the Messiah, but he's the guy, right? I've done videos about this, how they crowned him that a while ago, and here he's kind of fitting the mold. And it would be an easy mold for him to fit because, right, it's all about Christians. I'm a Christian, right? Because I do everything the religious way, the right way. But you got to remember something. Religion in Scripture, they were the ones that called for Christ to be put to death. Religion. Those people that knew it all, those people that had the big sermons and the big megachurches, they were the ones that said, we want them gone. And why do we want them gone? Because they weren't in the business of setting people free. They were in the business of slavery. That's right. Kanye actually considers himself to be like a Moses of sorts. He's actually doing some things with artists. He's trying to set them free from their contracts and everything else. I applaud him. I'm not dogging the man. I really am not. I think it's great that he's got people maybe thinking that there's more because everybody has to come to John the Baptist first before they come to Christ, right? And like Simon the magician who did all those great little things and everybody thought he was so cool because he could do these big stunts just like Kanye walking across the water, missing the whole point of the story. And when you find out what this really means, when you find out what, Christ walking on this sea and what it really means when you dig down and you go into the Hebrew and you start to peel apart the layers that was put there for us to seek. You seek and you find. It's amazing. It's beautiful. So I was really glad that Kanye took this moment to do this incredible feat. Compared comparing himself to Jesus walking on the water. Because now it gives us all an opportunity to find out what it really means. So on a spiritual level, I've taught about this before, okay? The sea, in Scripture, we read this in Revelation 20, the sea gave up her dead, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and judged every man according to their deeds, the sea. The sea, we find in Revelation, the waters of the world, right, that the great whore of Babylon sits on, is the nations and the multitudes and the people. The sea is very, very symbolic of the ways of carnal mankind, the ways of the world. That's the sea. And I've taught for many years about how Christ walks above it. In other words, the ways of the world don't drag him down. And Peter understood that he was just as Christ and that he could do the same thing. And he did for a moment until he took his eyes off Christ and he started looking below, started looking at the trouble, started looking at the ways of the world, started looking at everything around him. And he said, I can't do this. I can't walk above it. I can't be happy. The virus of the crown is going on. Oh, so much stuff, censorship and so much this and so much going on in the world, and there's going to be meteors, and there's going to be war, and people talking, and they got me all so scared. I can't do it, Lord. Peter sinks into the water. What's Christ do? Grab him, lifts him up, and he goes, you little faith dude. You got like no faith. What's wrong with you? He goes into the ship, calms the storm. That's the story. That's the story. It's our story. It's our story. And the irony is, well, he probably put all this money into this great stunt, right? Which was very, very cool. I thought it was cool. Let's watch it again. How many people understand what that means? Not many. So let's get into it, shall we? You see, now there are a couple of layers to Scripture, right? Some words were translated a certain way. That means that they have one meaning, and then the translators, those that bring it into the language that we now read as English, they made choices, right? Okay, so we're gonna really kind of peel back the layers of this story because it's an important story, and it's about you, believe it or not. It's about me. And before we get into that, I'd like to remind everybody that Jesus, Yeshua, this is the way he taught. He taught with story, right? Unto those, he said to his disciples, those that were students of the truth, spiritually speaking, it would be like if you right now are students of Christ in you, because that's how he now teaches, right? He was there back in the day, and now he's spread abroad in all of our hearts, teaching us, bringing us to the kingdom. Is not just about people back in the day, but it's also about you and me. It's about all of us, about the world. Let me set the stage. A lot of people started following Jesus. They thought he was great. They thought he was the man because he had all the info, right? And he was doing some things that he was helping people to walk, he was helping people to see, he was helping people to hear, right? He was doing things. And he was loving, right? He'd be hanging out with the prostitutes, he'd be hanging out with the tax collectors. He was a cool dude. He didn't condemn anybody, really. The only time that you saw him lose his cool was when he walked into the temple where they basically took, the house of God. That was where God was supposed to be represented and revealed in the outer court. And they were using it to make money. They were, they were selling the sacrifice. They were selling this. It's kind of like today if you go to a big major church, mega church, right? right, in the outer court, right before you go into the court, and there's the inner sanctum and all that stuff. I mean, it's all like a blueprint of what we see today in church. But they sell the books, they sell the oils, they sell the tambourines. You walk in, you get the coffee, you get the holy biscuit, right, whatever. And then you go in and they tape off those, you know, front row seats and everything else. This stuff happens at Kanye's services, I'm sure. What if perhaps Christ appears to everyone, right? Spiritually speaking, all these people are so hungry. And Christ just, you know, just feeds them. Here you go. This is truth. This is wonderful. This is love. This is peace. This is joy. This is what you must do. And he just gives this, he downloads all this amazing, it's so much information, so much insight, so much wonder that there's like all these fragments left behind. Okay, so now those that truly want to follow the truth of God, that want to follow Christ, the disciples, after they eat, guess what happens? This is where the walking on water starts. And straightway he constrained his disciples to get into the ship. So that means that he, right after they ate everything, right after they were filled with a new understanding and a new knowledge, he kind of forced them to get into the ship and to go to the other side. That's what he says. Get into the ship, go to the other side before onto Bethsaida, while he sent the other people away. You get the idea that he's saying, hey, get in the boat, go over there. I'm going to get rid of these clowns. Because they were only eating to fill their belly. They weren't disciples of mine. That's basically what it means. But you see, this story, these words, there's a better translation for them, okay? So now, immediately after learning the truth of God, immediately after this, what we're doing is we're constrained to go in the ship. Guess who the ship is? You're the ship. To go within, to pray, to seek, right? To go to the other side. Now, what side? The side that you're on now ain't the good side. Go to the other side. How do you get to the other side? See, here's what the problem is. These disciples, they get in the ship, they get in the water, they go over, and then a storm comes. You know, because they left Christ on land, went alone. This is kind of a symbolic journey of what happens right after we come to the knowledge of the truth, that we are basically tested and tried. You're going to see, because that is what the sea is, believe it or not. Straightway he constrained the disciples to get into the ship and to go to the other side to Bethsaida while he sent away the people. Now, let's break these words down. All right? Because this is where it gets very cool. He tells his disciples to go to the other side where they've been before. Now, that word, by the way, before, go to the other side before onto Bethsaida. Feels weird. Sounds weird. Sounds weird, right? What does that mean, before? Well, that word before doesn't mean like, you know, go right away, you know, go over there and get it. It means, it's proago, Strong's word 4254. The word literally means to lead forward, to lead forth from one place that has been hidden from view, to deliver one from a prison of sorts. Now, in a forensic understanding, it means to bring someone to trial. Think about that. So immediately, he constrains the disciples, get into the ship, go to the other side before onto Bethsaida. And that means to bring one to a trial, to judgment. When the truth of God comes, when you start to get filled up, right? You are then sent, you're constrained to go within, to go to the other side, to change your life. And to get there, you are going to be tested and tried. And that's exactly what happens. So it's kind of a picture of like you've come to the channel, we'll say, let's put this in terms you understand. All of a sudden, maybe you're coming to some faith, where you had a little bit of understanding, and then, you know, I touch on a couple of things, and all of a sudden Christ opens up the deeper meaning of these things, and you start getting filled, right? You start getting filled. That's why I kept saying You come to the channel, get a drink, but you're going to thirst again if you're not going to the source, if you're not going to God. So you get filled up, and it's like, okay, now you got to deal with testing. It's time to be judged. It's time to be separated from the lies you once believed. That's what it means. That's what judgment means. Judgment's not a bad thing. It's just that we've been living our life the wrong way. We've been thinking the wrong way. We've been treating people the wrong way. And now we are being judged for it so that we can be set free from it so that we don't have to suffer anymore. This is a beautiful message. That like literally walking on water is just, it's too much to just ignore. So we get fed. We're cast into a time of testing, and other people are sent away. And as the other people are sent away, it says that, and when he sent them away, he departed to a mountain to pray. Now that word sent doesn't mean like, okay, go home now. You don't need to go to the other side, just go home now. See, it's understanding though, because when you go into a time of testing, the stuff that you don't need, you get rid of, okay? It's ironic because you have this picture of the disciples going into the ship and going into the sea, and then a storm comes, and they're freaking out. They think they're going to die. And it's happened so many times. It's happened to Jonah, right? It happened to Paul. And what do? They get rid of all the stuff to try to save it. You get everything that you've stored up as a treasure needs to be purged so that you don't get destroyed during the storm. This is all a spiritual story. The waters, the sea, it's all very, very relevant to your life. That word sent literally means to separate oneself, as in separating the truth from lies, okay? So he departed, it means once you start eating that truth, once you're sent into a time of judgment, okay? The lies that you used to believe, the things that you used to think, they are cast away. And this is what Christ is doing within all of us. There's a work that's going on right now. He's sending the other people away. He's separating the truth from the lies within us. And this is why that when evening came, right, it's at the end, the ship was in the midst of the sea and Christ alone on land. That word even means when it was late in the day. When it was late. It was like the end days, okay? When it was late, the last hour, if you will, okay? He was alone. That word alone means forsaken. So at the very end, when the evening has come, people have forsaken Christ. And what ends up happening? They're set forth into a time of testing, and they go onto the ship, and what ends up happening? When the evening was come, the ship was in the midst of the sea, and he was alone on land. And he saw them toiling in rowing, for the wind was contrary to them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he comes to them, walking upon the sea, and would have passed them. So you read that and you think, oh, this is great. They're on the ship. You make it all about the literal, but you miss the beautiful story. For example, that word toiling, it's actually in Greek, basan, I think it's basanazo in Greek. It's the same word in the book of Revelation, torment. Because you hear the word torment, and the smoke of their torment will rise up forever, and you think of torture. But it actually means the testing of precious metals by use of touchstone. Because we're all precious metals to God. He chooses, the scriptures say, the furnace of affliction to test us, right? To try us, to make us pure. When a silversmith is working with silver, it has to get rid of the impurities. So what it does is it holds the silver and all over the hottest part of the flame, so everything that's not silver bubbles to the surface. And do you know how the silversmith knows when the torment is done? When the silversmith can see its own reflection. How amazing is that? That our suffering is but for a present moment, so that we become the image of the living God here on earth. And right now it is the evening. The evening has come. People are being judged. And they're toiling and they're rowing. And they think that that's it because they've forgotten Christ. They've forsaken him. They've forsaken the truth of God. But even though they've forsaken him and they're trying to do it on their own accord, they're being tested. They're being tried. And they don't get it. They still don't get it. They think that it's all about them. They think it's all about their works and their deeds. And he saw them toiling and rowing. You know what's strange about this? That word rowing, it has a strange meaning in Greek. It means demons driving to some place the men whom they possess. Instead of you looking at a bunch of men rowing, toiling, like struggling as they row, really what's being said is that when we leave Christ, what ends up happening is we're tormented by the demons that are possessing us. Whew. And that causes great discomfort. Now remember what a demon is, right? A demon, a devil, is a lie from the father of all lies. If he's the father of all lies, anything that the father of all lies creates would be a lie. The truth sets you free from the lies. Now these are, deceptive spirits that we are possessed by. These negative thoughts that they haunt us, they hurt us. That's what's going down when you forsake Christ. And Christ knows it, and God knows it. So what does God do? God shows up. When you leave God behind, and you are set into a time of testing, it's gonna stink, right? And the wind would be contrary to you. So now, wind in Scripture is very symbolic. It's doctrine. The lies of the world, the ways of the world. It would be like Kanye walking on the water, that being doctrine. That's what it's all about. That's what the story's about. Nobody's seeing the deeper meaning of how Christ walks above the ways of the world to set us free from the nonsense that we're set into the sea, which, by the way, is judgment. That's what the sea is, time and time again. It's judgment. So the wind was contrary to him. And that is basically, your self-effort. When you come to the knowledge of the truth and you allow Christ to, take residence in your heart as if you have a choice, that you'll no longer be tossed to and fro by every slight wind of doctrine, lies. When you're going to the other side, the doctrines of the world are going to hinder you, try to hinder you. Your friends are going to say to you, you shouldn't watch that channel, you shouldn't listen to that nonsense, you shouldn't believe that phony baloney that God's in charge and God's in control. Shouldn't listen to Christ. Should listen to the Jesus of religion. You're going to have this wind. It's going to be in your face. It's going to be contrary to you. That word is adversarial. But once again, it's there. If we don't have the resistance, we never get spiritually strong. So it's there to help us grow. Comes a point when you're fighting enough, you got to just give up. And you know that you lose control. And that time was about the fourth watch of night. Christ comes to them walking upon the sea and would have passed them by. But when they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed it had been the Spirit and they cried out. So they're in the midst of the storm. And all of a sudden they see Yahshua walking. But we know now that the sea is judgment. And now we see a deeper meaning. That the hard times that we're going through, that Christ was upon them the whole time. And that there was a reason for it. And that it was all happening to get us to understand, to see. Ain't no spooky spirit, ain't no spooky ghost, ain't no spooky evil thing. That God is in control of all things. That's why he says, be of good cheer, it's me. You know what the fourth watch is, by the way? The fourth watch? Because you got 4 months to a year, to a new beginning, right? 40 days, 40 nights, always symbolic. 40 weeks to a pregnancy. It's all about birth. So at the fourth watch, you know what the fourth watch is? It's that end time, okay? And about the fourth watch of the night, he comes on to him. You want to know what that word night means? That word night is defined as the time when work ceases. It's the time to rest. So after our struggle, right? We for the first time ever, we want to know the truth. And then we end up in life just gets so hard and everything, is like, oh, I thought things were supposed to get easy because, that's what religion told me, right? I thought I was supposed to be able to do magic tricks and walk on water and I was supposed to be able to lay hands on this and do that and do that. And now all of a sudden life is so hard. Can't be God doing this to me. Can't be God waking me up. Can't be God trying to set me free. Then one day you just the fourth watch, when it's time to stop working, you see God's been there the whole time, judging you, setting you free, judging you, separating you from the lies you believe. And that's why we both can say that we can be of good cheer, that we don't need to be afraid. For when they saw him, they were troubled, but he immediately talked with them. He communed with them. And he says, be of good cheer. It's I. Don't be afraid. Fear not. It's like all over the scriptures. Fear not is like all over the scriptures, and all you hear today is a steady diet of fear. And look, I don't want you to be scared. I want you to be encouraged. I want you to know that in the midst of the storm, just like Jonah when he gave up, right? He prayed from the belly of hell. He's like, oh, deliver me. No matter how hard things get, it's there to deliver us from the lies that we've believed so we can be set free and we can finally know peace. And Christ is there walking above all our troubles the whole time. It's not some spooky monster doing it to us. God's in charge. All right, so I hope that this helped you out. I hope you subscribe to the channel. I hope you tell your friends. And have the best day ever. And don't make it about the literal miracles and all this. I mean, how silly is that, right? All the big pomp and all the stuff that they had to do, really, when the truth of God, you don't need no special effects to be set free and to see the true miracle that is God and Christ in you. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Jacob Israel. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and share this channel around. If these shows have helped you, help Jacob to reach more any way you can, and have the best day ever.